The opinions expressed in this segment are solely those of the commentator. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of this station, CTV News, Bell Media, or its employees.
In tonight's Murphy's Logic, Steve has some thoughts on Nova Scotia's proposal to increase the size and scope of the RCMP, particularly in smaller communities.
Actions speak louder than words. They're also usually a lot slower in coming and often disappointing. And so it is that more than 5 years after the Nova Scotia mass murders and more than 2 years after the final report of the commission that looked into those dreadful events, the Nova Scotia government has finally responded to repeated complaints about policing in the province, particularly in rural areas. Dramatic shortcomings in RCMP staffing levels and command structure, poor response times and communication have long formed the basis of those complaints. They predate the mass murders by decades, but they were all clearly on display during those desperate hours in April 2020 and in the days and weeks and months since. Even many of the critics of the Inquiry Commission were surprised, if not impressed, when its final report was critical of the RCMP response, reiterating calls for significant reform. Now, it is fair to say the RCMP was fingered as a large part of the problem in policing, which is why it is so surprising that as part of its solution, the Nova Scotia government is now proposing an even larger role for the RCMP. The Attorney General says municipal police forces that are unable to come up to new uniform standards set by the province will need to switch to the RCMP. That begs the question, why is the government confident that the RCMP, which has long failed to meet the public's expectations in rural policing, the right agency to usher in new and expanded standards? A consultant's report recommended that Nova Scotia look at creating a single provincial police force and even suggested a standalone force not involving the RCMP whatsoever. But short of that, perhaps such a provincial force could serve all of those areas now served by the RCMP and the others found to be lacking in high-quality municipal forces. That's likely more easily said than done or paid for, but it would go a long way toward restoring public confidence in rural policing, which is now sadly synonymous with the RCMP, the brand, and its shortcomings. I'm Steve Murphy.